So far we've got a few participants. That's great. And all right. People are still logging on. That's a good sign. All right, as people are logging on, I'm just going to get started because some people have a hard end. They need to be done by 2 to move on to the next thing because we have our jobs beyond this to deal with. And I want to welcome everybody that's joined us so far. And this presentation is going to be recorded and available on the CARES website in the not too distant future. For those who weren't able to join us today, can log on, and we'll also have the contact information from all the presenters that are going to be speaking today, so that if you, the observer, are looking to make that connection to somebody within our community, if somebody presents to you with needs, you'll have that available at the CARES website that will be, again, posting that on there. I'm John Farrell. I'm with the Warren Washington Association for Mental Health. I'm also the co-chair of the Saratoga North Country Continuum of Care. As a collaboration with our committee Partners in Hope, we are trying to get information out there to the community about resources available and talk about ways to collaborate with our partners in faith, as well as anybody else within our community, to try and connect people to services as they present to us individually in different agencies. Today we're here with members of some of our community providers. In no particular order, I have Kim Sopchak, Executive Director of Family Services Association, Jamie Munyon, Director of Shelter Services at Open Door Mission. I have Leigha Rosenberger, Associate Executive Director of VCHC. I have Stephanie Romeo, Program Director of the Emergency Shelter Housing at Shelters of Saratoga. I have Tina Beswick, Program Coordinator with WWAMH Care Management. Heather Frisk, Homeless Team Caseworker with Washington County DSS. And last but not least, Maggie Fronk, Executive Director of Wellsprings Cares. And as a matter of speaking, I decided that it would be best to start on a larger scale by going with one of our featured government agency representative, Heather Frisk, just to begin talking about the services they provide, especially around folks who are presented as homeless. And just a matter of housekeeping, if you could stay muted during the presentation, it helps with the sound. That way we don't have all the echoing. If there are any questions, I would like you to put them in the chat box for us to bring up later. We don't have to ask right away while the individual is speaking. So stay mute. Put your questions in the chat box. In the second half hour, hopefully we can get to your questions. Some of you might have the same. Thank you. And with that, I give you Heather Frisk from Washington County DSS.
Thank you. I thought I'd be able to present an overview of the homeless team to everyone today. It has been in existence for about 6 years here in Washington County, and the population we serve with the homeless unit is those that present as homeless, and also any natural disaster areas, a variety of other aspects as well, but those are kind of the 2 areas for the homeless team that helps out with. The team is comprised of social service welfare examiners, fraud investigations unit, a caseworker, a senior principal and director over the unit. We all interact on a daily basis together to provide any services that we can for anybody that does present as homeless in this area. I thought I'd give you a little idea of what each of those individuals do. As far as a broad overview of the social services examiners, they explore alternative options prior to a person applying as homeless and being placed by the county in a hotel or any other location. The examiner works in community collaboration with organizations such as Open Door Mission, the Shelters of Saratoga, Veterans Linkage, DV shelters, exploring family and friend options. Sometimes individuals and or families are very overwhelmed and may or may not forget some of their own resources that they have, and we help connect them with anybody that could be outside of a placement with DSS, because we're always hoping they can get on into a self-sufficient environment themselves. As far as the examiner continues to go through any eligibility application process with the homeless assistance program, whether that be temporary assistance, SNAP, Medicaid, HEAP, etc., and follow up when they're placed, and continuously trying to look for options for them to get into a home or apartment home option. As far as myself, as far as the caseworker, that has been determined by Washington County to have a caseworker as part of the homeless unit team here in Washington County. And I usually meet with the family family and or individual when they first come in, and we do a screening. That means I ask a variety of questions to help connect with why they became homeless and any other areas in the family and or individual's life that we may be able to connect them with, to again always look for permanency and self-sufficiency of that individual or family. I meet with them here at the agency usually when they already have scheduled appointments, and I do go out on the road. They're mostly unscheduled appointments because the expectation is that individual or family are going to their appointments, doing their housing searches, etc. And within doing that, I also can help them with a myriad of issues. One, maybe bringing them some housing contacts, community services, reminding them of transportation, bus route. There's just a long list of options that we can assist them with from a caseworker perspective. I work with this services unit as well, so that's a collaborative effort as well there. Of course, the senior in our unit would oversee the social service examiners. The principal oversees all of our unit. The director of assistance programs oversees all of us. So there's a continuum of layers so that we have a great connection with approval process and keep moving everything along for the homeless individual. There is a fraud investigations component as well, and that's a requirement. As far as the reminder of the importance, or anyone can be homeless, and that is something that is forgotten. It can be somebody who is very affluent to somebody who has just coming out of the prison system, and everybody in between. And sometimes it happens to an individual and or family more than once, whether by unfortunate circumstances, choices that individual and our family has made that brings us to us. And again, we make every effort to reach out to those individuals with a very respectful manner and encourage always the self-sufficiency and permanency of them. Not to be forgotten in all of this is the real impact of the COVID-19 has really impacted the way we have been governed on how to assist some individuals and families that have come in, as well as all of our community resource partners, and how they've been affected by the bottom line and all of their resources and where they've had to work from, and whether they're home or individual places or transportation or anything of that area. Again, I just keep re-emphasizing the goal is self-sufficiency and permanency, because that's what we'd like to see our families and our individual do to get them on track. And to do all this while we're looking for the housing piece, we're looking at connecting with drug and alcohol if necessary, mental health if necessary, health-related issues as necessary, parenting, daycare. The list can go on and on and on as to what we try to assist the family with, as long as we're working with them. I also welcome any individual family that I work with, of course, my colleagues as well, that once they get placed, if they need to reach out because they have a question, we're a team member within the community that we may be able to assist them and assist them to reaching out to any linkage or making a recommendation as to how to solve their problem. So I think that gives you a general overview of our homeless unit. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much, Heather. Thank you. And as one of those items that you're looking for, I'm sure one of them might be, where could they connect them? And it might be with somebody who's a veteran. And our next speaker is Leigha from VCHC. I forget what that acronym stands for, but I'm going to let Leigha talk a little bit about that and their work with veterans in our community.
Thank you. So I'm Leigha Rosenberger. I'm the Associate Executive Director at Veterans and Community Housing Coalition. We are a one-stop shop continuum for veterans getting into housing. We have 2 transitional homes, one for male veterans and one for female veterans. We actually operate the only female veteran transitional home in New York. It's a huge population that needs a lot of support services. So we provide services on that level. Most of our referrals are coming directly through the VA, but also we work really hand in hand with the coordinated entry process. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, is really a no wrong door, where anytime a homeless individual presents, whether it's at the Department of Social Services, whether it's at our door, that we can get them linked to the appropriate services. Outside of transitional housing for veterans, we provide support services through the Rapid Rehousing and Prevention Program, and that serves 7 counties. So that's to include Saratoga, Warren, Washington, Fulton, Montgomery, Schoharie, and Schenectady counties. We serve over 130 families each year. So we really try to focus on the housing first model as much as possible through this agency. Our funding is mostly coming directly through HUD and the VA. We will soon also be operating Emergency CARES Act funds, or ESG funds, excuse me, for the community for Saratoga County. In addition to the support services through the SSVF program, we also have 30 permanent supportive housing apartments right here in Saratoga County. So anytime that you might come into contact with someone who presents as a veteran, we really encourage anyone, instead of saying the verbiage, "Are you a veteran?" stopping and asking if they've ever joined the military. The reason for that is that every housing program for veterans has a little bit of a different eligibility criteria. So sometimes it's that they had to serve 4 consecutive years. For some, it could be that they only had 1 day active duty. So in changing that verbiage really allows us to serve a lot more men and women that did join the military. So anybody that you have on your outreach teams or you yourselves, when you're going through and asking them those kinds of specialized questions when it comes to veterans, asking them if they joined is really a really good familiar way to get through trying to find different services for them. What we see frequently, especially with female veterans, is that if they didn't serve in some type of combat, they won't identify as being a veteran. And we're really trying to crush that stigma that just because you didn't serve on the front lines or in combat doesn't take away the veteran status in any way, shape, or form. Every single man and woman that signed up to join the military was ready and willing to be on those front lines if needed. So we want to make sure that we can get our services across to as many veterans as possible. When it comes to community support, Veterans and Community Housing Coalition, we are the property managers for 40 low-income apartments in Saratoga. Those individuals do not have to be a veteran in order to qualify for the housing. So in reaching out to us directly for any sort of housing assistance, even if it's not for a veteran, we very well might have something when it comes to low-income affordable housing for them also. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Leigha. That was informative, and it's always good to get that clarification that it doesn't have to be a 4-year or 2-year stint within the military. It could even be 1 day. So keep that in mind when you're trying to find those connections with folks. Next I have up is Jamie Munyon. If you don't mind, he's going to tell us a little bit about Open Door Mission and their role.
Sure, thanks. My name is Jamie Munyon. I am the Director of Shelter Services at Open Mission. We have two shelter programs here. We have our Code Blue shelter, which is open when temperatures drop below 32 degrees. We have a few different rooms, and we're in the process of building more space to provide space for COVID. Code Blue has been open 11 nights so far this year, and we've seen 19 unique individuals come in already at Code Blue. Last year we had 91 unique individuals at our Code Blue shelter over the winter. So Code Blue is an important program, and it has grown so much in the last few years, and we've been able to serve and shelter so many more people these last couple of years. Alongside of that is our residential shelter program. Our residential shelter program, we have 8 beds for men and we have 6 beds for women. Those beds are year-round. We have individuals stay in our programming year-round in those beds. And we hope to, in the next few years, expand that to 50 plus beds for men. And we would actually move off-site beds for women. So the residential shelter program has programming that goes alongside of it. We have a program that we like to frame as an ecosystem. And what it is it's basically a point system where individuals can come into our residential shelter, and as they participate, they can earn points, and then they use those points to, if you will, pay for their night stay. There's a lot of ways to earn points. We hope to offer as many options as possible when it comes to earning points within the system. They can attend classes here at the mission. They can do, we have life path coaches that walk alongside them through the programming at the mission. They can earn points for that. They can also earn points by engaging with partner organizations off-site in addiction treatment or mental health treatment. They can earn points for that. They could earn points by going back to school, skills training. The sky's really the limit as far as earning points. We want to provide options that will hopefully speak dignity into the individual. So it's a new system, and it's based on our life path, which is 8 steps. And that 8 steps is really a path that is hopefully good for any individual and is adaptable to any individual's needs. So we're really hopeful that this program will be beneficial for the community, and you know, will be beneficial for our residents and guests. Outside of our shelter programming, we have our resource advocates who are on the ground 6 days a week, and anyone can arrive at the resource center and connect with the resource advocate, and the resource advocate will help that individual explore resources within the community. Will help them navigate all the resources that there are. And then beyond that, we have a soup kitchen that serves to-go meals at this point, 6 days for lunch and 4 days for dinner. And we have our food pantry program that's open Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays by appointment. If someone has a food need, we will absolutely take care of that need on the spot whenever they present. But we'll then get them hooked into the food pantry and get them scheduled for food assistance. So that's what I had. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate that. These are challenging times. Having those to-go meals while you're feeding the tummy doesn't always feed the soul. I'm sure it's a little difficult not having that sit-down conversation and such with those connections. I do like, it's an interesting frame for what you had, but the token economy with the point system can be a good way to get people involved with taking care of their own personal needs. Good for you. Next up, we have Stephanie Romeo, Program Director, Emergency Shelter Housing with Shelters of Saratoga.
Hello. So Shelters of Saratoga, we have the 2 buildings at our Walworth Street site, the emergency shelters. Normally would house about 27 individuals. Due to COVID, we are housing about 18 to 19, just because of restrictions with amount of people that can be in one room. We do also have Code Blue, which our main site at Adelphi is 40 people with some barriers we had to put up for COVID. And we're hoping to open overflow soon, if not by the end of this week, early next week, as the navigation center as well. We haven't needed overflow yet, so it likely won't serve as overflow just yet until Adelphi fills up. But we're just waiting on some other agencies to sign up for spots to be able to open it up as a navigation center and meet with individuals during the day when it's cold to get them off the streets while it's below 32 during the week. We do have the 2 apartment buildings as well, which have their permanent housing. So we've had tenants in there for a while. We have our outreach program, which is currently primarily going out on Wednesdays, thanks to Salvation Army providing us with a driver to do that for us, because we've been a little short staffed, especially with the Code Blue season. So yeah, at the emergency shelter sites, we've got the 2 care managers. They meet with individuals to connect them to resources, to provide employment assistance, educational opportunities, permanent housing solutions. So once you're here, you're assigned a care manager and you work towards goals. You complete a service plan and you meet with your care manager weekly to work towards those goals. At Code Blue, we have support staff as well that's available to complete applications or assist our guests there in looking for permanent housing. The navigation center, the hope is to have multiple different agencies in there to provide their services and make sure individuals are connecting to the resources that are available. And then we have the 2 apartment buildings where there's oversight. We check in on them and make sure they're doing well, connect them to outside care management agencies as well. We do have food on site here, but our outreach has primarily been going out to the motels to provide food to individuals who are housed in the motels by DSS. As far as our intake process here at this site, we do a screening process. Sometimes the referrals come from DSS, sometimes it's a self-referral. We do complete a screening process before someone comes in to make sure they're appropriate for our location. And then we complete an intake when they do get in here and they get assigned to a bed and care manager, like I said. So that's really the overview. At Code Blue, individuals are receiving a meal while there. We do have hats and gloves and winter necessities available to make sure that they are prepared during the daytime until we can get our navigation center up and running, which is obviously coronavirus has made that a little bit more difficult as well as far as staffing for Code Blue and the navigation center. But we are making the best of it and we hope to open the navigation center soon. So I guess that's an overview. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box.
Thank you, Stephanie. There's a lot of challenges. Certainly going to be a running theme. A lot of things that are being discussed are touched upon about what's been going on annually up until this year. They've had to scale back because of the challenges regarding COVID. So that's always a running theme these past few months. Next up, I have from Wellspring, the Executive Director, Maggie Fronk.
Hello, thanks for being with us today. So Wellspring, if you're not familiar with it, is the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Services Agency in Saratoga County. And we also provide sexual assault services only in Washington County. So we do everything from crisis support to ongoing support services and a lot with basic needs. What I'd really like people to know is you don't need to be in a crisis to call us. We're there 24/7 through our hotline, through our office. with free confidential services. In fact, you don't even personally need to be a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault to call us. You could have someone in your life you're worried about, whether it's a son, daughter, mother, father, neighbor, coworker, employee, and you're worried they may be in that kind of a situation. We're there to help you too. And so don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call. We operate our county's only domestic violence shelter, and do legal advocacy in all the courts in the county. We help people to understand their rights and options in the system, because I think so often most of us don't understand what the justice system is about, and we don't even know where to start in that system. Same thing with basic needs. Lots of times people stay in abusive relationships, particularly if they have these little ones, because they're just afraid if they left, they couldn't meet their family's basic needs. They couldn't put a roof over their head, food on the table, and pay for medical expenses. We have ways to help with all those things. And one of those big ways is housing. We have 38 apartments throughout Saratoga County where people can come in and be immediately housed to get out of a domestic violence situation. In some places in our county, the wait for Section 8 is 7 years long. When you're living with abuse, you simply can't wait that long. So we have a lot of people come into our housing program and can't pay a cent when they come in. It works on the same kind of financial principle as Section 8, but there's a really big difference. Every week we provide in-home support services to help that family, A, to be safe, to heal and deal with the adjustment from having been in the abuse, but then also to work on financial self-sufficiency. So housing and basic needs are a big part of what we do. We have a food pantry. I'll just leave it there, and I'll open it up for questions you might want to ask me on the chat line. But bottom line is that we are there to help no matter where you are in the situation. You don't have to be afraid that if you come in, you'll be whisked away to some underground shelter. People come. We have a lot of people who are living in the abuse still, but coming to us for services because they want to know how to be safer in the abuse. They want to kind of process what's going on. And they also want to know what's their plan B and C in case they are at a point of needing a change. So we don't have any expectations when someone comes. We help them with where they are and where they'd like to be. And then my very favorite thing that we do is prevention and social change work. And we work with a lot of faith communities. We work with students. We work with community groups because, as many of you have heard me say, I want to be out of a job. And I want to be out of a job because we don't need these services any longer, because no one is abused anymore. And I've got 20 advocates who help victims to find safety, but to end relationship and sexual abuse, we need to work with our entire community on how we can create that social change. So we have options for engaging everyone. Feel free to give a call, and I'll put my contact information in the chat line. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. I think there's many among us on the line today that on one level we need an income, but certainly we'd love to be out of this job just so because there's no need, not because but thank you. That's a sentiment we all share. Next up, I have from my very own agency, Warren Washington Association for Mental Health, my colleague, Tina Beswick. Take it away, Tina.
Hi. So I am Tina Beswick, coordinator for the Adult Care Management Program. Our care management program is contracted with Adirondack Health Institute, the Health Home Care Management Program. But we've been doing case management, care management for many, many years before that. So we're well-versed in how to help individuals. We do work with folks who have Medicaid as well as individuals who do not have insurance. And really our role is to link individuals to services, whether that's mental health services, substance abuse services, medical needs, and of course, social determinants of health, which brings us to homelessness. So I took a little bit of time before today's panel and just took a look at our caseload list. Right now we're serving about 150 people in our adult care management program. Of those 150 people, I looked at our list and we had approximately 30 of those people have been homeless at some point in the last year or so that are housed now or they're continuing to be homeless. So I thought that was just interesting to take a peek at, and how we might help the individual address their housing needs. We work with agencies like DSS, like Shelters of Saratoga, the Open Door. We're linking folks, telling folks, where they can get some help and some assistance. We're doing applications, coordinated entry applications for higher level of care programs, such as community residents, psychiatric treatment programs. Somebody needs to go to a halfway house, we're linking them to those services. So it's very individualized. As far as our own agency, we do have a number of emergency housing beds. Some are located at our Housing First building called Interim Apartments. And then we have an apartment building that our program actually rents, and we are able to house some individuals there up to 90 days while we work with them to figure out what their permanent placement is going to be. So, we run the gamut of things. Most of our clients, they're seen by their care manager at least every other week, some every week. It depends on their level of need and what's going on. Right now we have 6 care managers, and we also have a short-term case manager. I just want to touch base on that short-term case manager because that's really our person that if somebody is not connected to a therapist or doesn't really know how to navigate the system, you can call our office and speak with her. Her name is Melissa Cooper. And I'll share her information on the chat line after, but there's no referral process. There's no paperwork that needs to be, filled out in order to get our services specifically for short-term case management. It really is a phone call away. Prior to COVID, we would have individuals just come into our door, and Melissa Cooper was the first one that they might come into contact with and just help assess what their needs are. So I will share her information. From there, Melissa can direct the individual to our regular care management, health home care management program. She can also do referrals to Eastside Center, which is a day psychosocial program. Again, those psychiatric rehabilitation programs, if the individual is in need of that, or even just connecting them to mental health treatment or primary care if they need that. So her door is always opened, and I'll share her information. So I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah, so that's care coordination with AMH.
Thank you, Tina. Yeah, they keep you busy. I know that.
They do.
As our next speaker is always kept very busy, and that would be Kim Sopcich from Family Services.
Hi, thanks, John. Kim Sopcich, Executive Director, Family Service Association of Glens Falls. We are celebrating 110 years of service and support to the region this year. Our celebration has been put on hold due to COVID, but our work goes on. We have been open every day since the start of the pandemic, although we are operating a little bit differently. All our programs and services are intact. Some of the services that we provide pretty much relate to crisis intervention and prevention. We're kind of the quick stop that some people may make or refer to our programs. I think everybody on the panel, as well as probably many people listening, we have had referrals go back and forth often to find support and help for people. We have a full service food pantry that's open 5 days a week. We provide bus tokens, we have diapers. We have 2 annual programs. One we're running right now, our Adopt a Family program. And then we have Feet First in the summer, which provides school shoes to children. But our biggest program that we run is what we call our special needs program, which is financial assistance to people in need. And typically that deals with homelessness, food insecurity, utilities, health needs, transportation. I would say the majority of the people that come to our agency for help, either through referral, through a phone call, or we used to say walk in the door, now we say ring the doorbell, have been housing needs. And whether they're looking for rent assistance because they've fallen behind on their rent, or if they're homeless, we try and get them help fairly immediately within 1 to 2 days. We will try and find them some help. Either it's in-house from Family Service Association or perhaps from another referral. We work with a lot of people that are either homeless or in danger of homeless. And a lot of times they've already had some of the points of contact, either through DSS or coordinated entry. But we help meet that immediate need because we all know it still takes some time to go through some of the services to get into permanency. We are a member of the Continuum of Care for the Saratoga North Country. We're also a member of McKinney-Vento for the homeless liaison for the schools in many of the counties, and just trying to keep our doors open for families in that immediate need, whether they need shelter and they're not eligible through some of the other services, or if they need food, or if they need personal care items, clothing. We try and do our best to help. We do serve Warren, Washington, and Northern Saratoga counties. We do have funding for rent, and we are one of the few agencies that will help with security deposits. We've kind of had to relook at how our funding is structured so that we could help with that. I did, like Tina did, I was looking at a little bit of our data and statistics. And since January, we have directly helped 14 homeless families or individuals. But interestingly, on top of that, we've also paid 10 security deposits to families or individuals that are moving out of homelessness and into some kind of permanent housing. We also made several rent payments that people are moving out of homelessness, but security deposits definitely are the most common request. And we've also paid several rent payments right before COVID hit, to help families avoid an immediate eviction. So it definitely is an important part of our work to work with people that are facing homelessness or at risk for homelessness. We also have some EFSP funds, which is the Emergency Food and Shelter Program funds. If anybody's familiar with them, it's a program with United Way that is nationwide. But we find it very difficult to use those funds that were given to us because the criteria is so specific, and most of the families that we work with just can't quite make that criteria. For example, a rent payment has to be made within 10 days of that rent being due, and no back rent can be paid. And most of our families come to see us if they're in danger of eviction, they owe several months, and that one rent payment is just not going to secure them staying in that apartment necessarily for a long period of time. So we work case by case, and we treat everyone with dignity and respect. We're a very small agency. We only have 3 full-time staff. And during this pandemic, we have missed our volunteers greatly, but we're here, we're open. And certainly if you have someone who needs help, we will be happy to see what we can do. On a side note, we are also the coordination center for the Adirondack Wellness Connections. And that is an online referral supported by Unite Us, where people can be connected to assistance. And definitely overwhelmingly about 52 to 60%, depending on the quarter, it's always a housing need that comes through that platform. So very telling. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. So, yes, Kim was our last of the panelists to speak, not to say that they're done speaking, because I'm going to ask some questions, but I want to put it out there that while we have a lot of available resources, there's always that tough part about navigating them. And within the continuum of care, we try, especially when it comes to homelessness, to find the right place for each individual that presents as homeless. Just in the last year, better than a year now, we brought to our coordinated entry meetings members of the various DSSs, because they are just as, if not more, inundated with people being presented as homeless as members that just some of the members of our COC today. And Leigha touched upon it earlier about what we call our no wrong door policy. That is, somebody could come to Tina or somebody could come to Maggie who may not necessarily meet their criteria, but they're homeless. And we have an application process where we can say, okay, you're homeless, you meet certain criteria. We're going to take your information and we're going to share it amongst our coordinated entry team. And we're going to try and get you, to the right people. This is all voluntary by the individual who's presenting. They don't, we don't just say, no, you have to go this way. We present it to them that while I may not be able to help you, I can try to get you to the right place. And that has been our goal for a number of years now. I think it's definitely developed into a working system. The saddest part is, and I don't think anyone's going to disagree with me, is the resources are still difficult, and we don't always have a lot of spaces to put people. That's not to say we don't try. That's not to say, as Kim was saying, there's sometimes the resources available are like, they didn't check all the right boxes. And that's the hardest part, is when we're just so desperately trying to find that person some assistance. So among all the normal, if you want to call it normal, reasons people are become homeless, we have this new thing, and since at least early part of this year, COVID, that has I've called put things off for a cliff for housing. We have a lot of people who may be inundated with difficulties when the moratorium on eviction comes up. And to help mitigate that, there are some resources to help do that. And one of them is an emergency services grant that was sent out to our 3 counties. I don't mean to I don't know what Hamilton County is doing, but I can speak a little bit about Saratoga County. Has a number of our agencies within the COC that's going to be administering part of their almost $900,000 grant. And within Warren and Washington County DSS is administering their ESG grant. And Warren County, you're going to be working, the lead agency is White House, and also Open Door Mission will be helping coordinate that. Is that correct, Jamie? I'm not sure. Yes. Okay. But Margaret DeVries at White House is doing that. And part of that, and please weigh in, those people that are actually administering the grant. This is a good time for you to unmute Maggie, Heather, Leigha, and weigh in on some of the qualifications for that. I do know that anybody presenting as homeless on the normal route, like I said, whatever, DSS normal funds that are meant for that are going to be used for that. But in those unique situations that are related to COVID, like your housing is because of a COVID related issue, there are these other funds. Am I characterizing this correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
So a big component of this is that we know that there's a lot of people that have been affected by COVID financially who are residing in housing. So fortunately, due to the state moratorium, nobody's been able to actually be evicted. However, that will get lifted at some point. And in order to keep these families safely housed, these funds will help us do that by paying some of the arrears, or for families who are currently staying with other family members, couch surfing, getting them into permanent, safe, and stable housing.
And John, if I may interject, you'd said, kind of tell what the eligibility criteria are. I'm going to say, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Call one of our agencies. In Saratoga County, Captain is the lead agency, but many of our agencies are working at it. So you don't have to know what resource you qualify for to call us. Just call, and we know that, and we can help you through it. So in our county, we've got everything from street outreach to putting people in motels while they're being quarantined, to helping our shelters. And we've also got other funds through the city of Saratoga Springs. So what I'd say is, if you've got somebody in need, have them call one of our core agencies and we'll help walk them through the processes.
I agree.
Yes, that's always a plus. I don't know how many times I've gotten just from people knowing who I am, phone calls or emails, and I'm like, I'm not sure, but I know someone. and that's really what it is. It's about that connection. That's one of the wonderful things about being part of this continuum of care is over the years we've learned more and more about one another. I know when I was doing direct care, and Tina can probably speak to this as well. It's often, and I only pick on her because she's my colleague. It's often, you forget what resources are out there because the person you've worked with is always, this person's in column A, column A, column A. I know all that. Oh, wait a minute. This guy's presenting with 3 items I'm not familiar with. And you still want to help them. So now, and you may have helped them 7 years ago, and now someone else has the same issue, and you're like, who was that I talked to 7 years ago? So as good as we are at our jobs, we're human beings and we have to rely on one another. So, never feel like you have to know everything. I don't feel like I got to know everything. That's why I rely on my friends and colleagues out there. And I'm never bashful saying, I forgot, I don't remember, help guide me through it. So
I mean, I think that really circles around, John, to why having a continuum of care is so important. Everybody has a different piece of the puzzle that we're working on in order to, that whole saying that it takes a village, that's really what it's all about. Being able to help each other out so that we can help everybody in the community.
very
Right,
true.
it's the overlap in the specialties.
So, like I was saying earlier, I wanted to make sure we touched on ESG, coordinated entry, and I know that there's this new lingo out there, social determinants of care, that is getting a lot of attention. I'm glad that's happening because it really opens up that box that said, okay, you have a mental health issue, we're going to deal with your mental health issue. Or you have a domestic violence issue, we're going to just deal with that one thing. No, there's all kinds of pieces, and the whole social determinants of care has been helps open it up. Because how can I thrive, survive, and do well if I don't have housing, food, and get to my prescriptions? Yeah, you get me to my medical appointments, but now I can't get transportation for my prescriptions. So those things are getting attention as we go along, and I don't mean to take us off on a different direction, but I just wanted to let anybody out there know that the good news is people are coming around to it's a bigger picture than just one silo of information. You can't just fix one thing. It's usually 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 in order to make things work. So I'm glad we touched a little bit upon that today. And I guess we don't need to belabor it, but resources are limited. So if you do present to one of these folks, we're not lying when we say we do this. But the unfortunate thing is we're inundated. And sometimes when we say we want to help, but we're full, it could be, I can't serve you because COVID says I can't have too many people in the building, or the state just gave us a 20% funding cut because they don't have any money because of COVID. We've got a tough year, and it's going to get tougher. I'm going to make the shameless plug. If you know people who got money and want to make a donation to one of these agencies, they're going to say thank you very much because they could use it. So rather than have them individually plug it, I'm going to tell you right now, if you ever felt like, and you're in a good situation to give, this is the year to do it, because they could really use it this year. And if you can't, they understand that too, because everybody's having a hard time. So anyhow, I made my shameless plug for all of you. Everyone's deserving. You're all doing great work. And because we have 7 panelists, and because we're already getting closer to the end hour, one of the things I asked each and every one of them to do was to consider sharing with us, because this whole thing is also related to Partners in Hope. I'm sorry, before I do this, is there a question we haven't gotten to, Maggie?
No, I can open it up for a minute if you'd like. Have everyone unmuted if they'd like, or
I did share that there'd be time for questions. If you had a question that hasn't been answered, now's the time. If there's nothing in the chat box for a question, we can move on.
no questions that have not been answered in the chat box. I just unmuted everyone.
Awesome. So what I had asked all the panelists to do is to share with us something that makes it worth coming back to work. That is to say,
Sugar pops. Oh, poop.
keep muting. There. So what I'd asked everybody to do is share what an experience that kind of makes you want to come back to work. Because a lot of the stuff we do can really wear on your heart and soul because it's stressful. They call it vicarious trauma, but I'm not going to get into that. So you're dealing with people dealing with some tough stuff, and it makes working with them sometimes hit your heart and hurt. However, it's the good stuff that is the successes, those great moments that says, I made a difference. So I'm going to go in the same order that I did to present, and I'm going to ask each person to just share their little anecdote. You don't name names. It's not your story for them, but you can name woman, man, child, whatever. Take it away, Heather. Tell us what makes you want to come to work in the morning.
Well, I thought I'd share a story with you. A lot of just hope. I just have a lot of hope for everyone, glass half full theory, and just work from there. We did have a gentleman that came to our office, and he had come out of the rehab situation. He had been with a variety of people before us, presented here, had a shelter care voucher through Weight House and Community Action. So we're already with a lot of resources in the community already, had looked for a variety of places, was kind of down and out. An opportunity came up to him, go to Shelter of Saratoga. He was reluctant to do that. However, that was one of the options we presented to him. He needed to go there. He was so grateful after getting there. It was so incredibly helpful. He thanked us very much for giving him that support. He wound up finding a location through a lot of collaborative efforts. He did result starting Washington County, but he did ultimately wind up in Glens Falls in Warren County. And to this day, now he continues to say, oh, I'm so thankful. I haven't been in my own place in so long. I'm so looking forward to it, and was really glad. Now, obviously that was not just the DSS effort, that was DSS reaching out, him reaching out, all the other agencies reaching out. And it was very time consuming, but in the end, when you heard he was happy being where he was and felt confident to move forward, and he's sharing his story. So thank you to everybody who's worked with us, and we hope to continue those stories moving forward.
Thank you very much. Leigha, I'm sure you got a million, but what do you got for today?
I do, and kind of, going back to what Heather was just saying, that so many times it's a collaborative effort. And like Maggie said, talking about eligibility, sometimes our agencies are able to do so much for individuals that you can't list them and you can't identify all of the needs or the specialized things. So quick story, Marine veteran made his way to Saratoga County from Texas, had no place to go, goes to Shelters of Saratoga. From there, a referral was made to VCHC, to our rapid rehousing program. He got housing, got himself situated. Some things from his past backed up, which were some things he needed to continue working on, some substance abuse issues. So he ultimately had to leave his apartment. That level of housing wasn't working for him at the time. Went into rehab and got a referral from the VA to our transitional home. From there, he worked diligently. He became a senior resident. He applied for Social Security, got income. From there, we were able to move him into, we got HUD funding for a permanent supportive housing apartment program. So he was one of the first individuals to go into that. So he was going to be able to have his own apartment, but he was going to have consistent case management instead of short term. That proved to do him well. From there, he really wanted to start giving back. So he started working with the Salvation Army. You probably at some point might have seen this gentleman driving around in one of their vans. He started doing per diem work for us at the men's house also, all while living in one of our programs. And then we got a phone call from another Marine just about 3 months ago saying that he wanted to donate a vehicle that he wasn't using anymore, but wanted it to go to a veteran in need. So we were able to link this gentleman that was giving back so much to others with his own wheels. And so I know it sounds like such a long story, but it was about 5 years in the making, but to really go to show that so many supports can help people's futures become so much brighter. And when I sit here and talk about that now and think about the first time I saw his name on a piece of paper and to where he is today is a huge miracle of like why at least I keep doing this. So they say human services is in your blood. And I think for most of us here, that rings true.
Very true. Thank you, Leigha. Jamie.
Yeah, sure. I would mirror that theme of it takes a village for certain. We had a woman land with us at Code Blue out of prison this last winter. And she moved into our residential shelter in April. That was when we first opened a residential shelter for women here at the mission. And in the midst of COVID, even in the midst of COVID, she was able to connect with many of the services that she needed: mental health, addiction. She's had operations that she has needed in the midst of this last season, and she's really grown and blossomed as a strong individual. She's a pretty strong personality, and she's quite a loving woman, and she's come to become just a loved individual here at the mission. I can't say enough about her. She's amazing, and yeah, like I said, it really, there's no doubt it takes a village. It wasn't us on our own. It was her willingness and the services within the community that she connected to. So,
Thank you, Jamie. Stephanie.
I will stay on theme here, and one story of mine that comes to mind that again took everyone. We had an individual who, when he had gotten here, he'd had a suicide attempt, had been using substances for a very long time, had multiple surgeries he needed, complications with surgeries. It wasn't looking like he was, going to be stably able to stay anywhere on his own. And we wrapped in everyone, DSS, Conifer Park, Celtic Counseling, just a real team approach, 820 River Street, and we got him stable, got his medical needs met, his mental health is stable. At the time, he had no income too, and his family sort of abandoned him, wasn't allowed to talk to his sons, and now he's stable, housed, has an income, and his sons are back in his life, and it couldn't be better for him. So that story always motivates me. It took a long time and a whole team, but it was worth it.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Great. So help me out. Maggie, are you next?
I will be. And
Okay.
so everybody else has been on theme. There's one Maverick in every group. I'm going to go off theme.
There you go.
And I'm going to talk about the social change aspect of what we do. One of our social change initiatives is a response to a mistake we made about 40 years ago in our industry. We defined domestic violence and sexual assault as women's issues, not as community issues. And I think in that way, we alienated men. And most men are not abusers. Most men are loving husbands, fathers, brothers, friends, neighbors. So one of our initiatives is called Men with Wellspring. And it's an invitation we have to well-meaning men to say, come and be part of this. We started it back in January. And we have a small group of men who gather now over Zoom once a month. And we just talk about these issues so that they understand them better. And one of the participants in that is also one of our Partners in Hope members, Pastor George Stefani of the First Baptist Church. And he has, every month it seems, he comes to us with another story of a parishioner or someone he knows in his life who came to him with a situation. But because he's been talking about these issues, he developed a different understanding and he asks deeper questions. And he says through that, he's gotten them to open up about what's really happening, so that he's able to help. For example, one woman who came to him was just kind of talking about a problem in a relationship and didn't say anything about abuse, but he heard some subtleties that he heard us talking about and asked deeper. And she said, I'm so glad you asked. Nobody's ever asked me this, but yeah, this is what's going on. And that was the start of pulling a whole thing together between his congregation, between Wellspring, and helping that person to get to a safe future in their life. So our issues happen behind closed doors, out of sight of the community. Most people don't know the prevalence of them in the community because there's such shame and stigma attached. But the more that we, as well-intentioned people, talk about them, the more that we get closer to our vision of a community without relationship or sexual abuse.
Thank you very much. And Tina.
So the individual that came to mind as far as that kind of feel good, oh my God, we did a great job. Community helping this person did a great job, is an individual who's transgender. He had been working, developed some suicidal struggles, some really severe depression, kept calling off from work that ended up resulting in the loss of that job, or actually having to take a leave of absence. When I look back, he actually was in the hospital about 15 ER visits and 6 inpatient hospitalizations. A couple of those were pretty severe suicide attempts. Lost his apartment because he lost the job. Took a little bit to get the unemployment up and going. And we moved him into our temporary emergency housing that our care management team oversees. Stayed there. We really, because of the number of hospitalizations and the intensity of his needs, we really felt he needed psychiatric rehabilitation housing. So he was referred to AMH residential programs. There's waiting lists for things like that. So we extended his stay in our emergency housing placement, assisted him in applying for SSI and SSD benefits. And fortunately, last was just before COVID. He was approved for Social Security benefits and decided to move to his own apartment instead. We were very nervous about this. But he pulled it out, even with COVID. And then a HUD voucher became available a few months after that. So he's living in his own apartment with his own income and doing quite well, to the point where he's actually asking for discharge. He feels like he doesn't need our services. He has not been in the hospital since last October, so a year ago, a little over a year ago. No ER visits. And connected to treatment, connected to therapy, just doing really, really well. So that just warms my heart.
Thank you, Tina. And Kim, I can't believe, Kim, that you've been doing this for 100 years. You don't look at
I know, hey. Well, I am going to share some comments that our clients, specifically I pulled out from our guest book, clients that were homeless that we assisted in some way, and they left us a word of thanks. And I think these words of thanks say more than just what's on the paper that they wrote, but it also is a glimmer of the hope that all our programs give people when they're really in great need. And I think being homeless is one of the greatest needs some of our clients can have. And I didn't go through to see if they were all referred to us by another agency, but my guess is they probably were, and they needed immediate help. And I just wanted to share you a few of the quotes. From a gentleman who was homeless and needed shelter for a week, he left us a message: "Thank you and God bless you for all you have done to help me." From a single mom of 2 that we paid for an emergency housing for a week in, I know this was in conjunction with DSS. she also had come and gotten food. Thank you so much for helping my family. We are having a really rough time and definitely needed help. Simple words, but I think it's from the heart, and it just shows that little bit of positiveness also can bring hope. From a homeless couple that we referred to an emergency housing program, thank you for saving us in our time of need. From a chronically homeless man who secured a shelter plus care voucher and now is on year 1 of being in his own apartment, yay. Thank you for all your help in the years. It was nice to have somebody care for you. And then from a homeless man who was connected to permanent stable housing, and he hopefully will be getting a shelter plus care voucher soon, but he has been in stable housing also for a year. Thank you for all your support. It has been greatly needed and appreciated during my struggles and road to recovery. So just that they took time to write those words themselves in a book, I think really means that all the support these programs give helps give them a little bit of a stable foundation and hope. So I thank you all for all your hard work, because it definitely comes out in what these people have said. Thanks.
Indeed, and thank you. And thank everybody that was able to join us today. I see we've lost a lot of folks. Like I said earlier, we had people needed to have a hard end at 2. They had to get to work. And I don't take it personally. I understand everyone's got to get to do what they got to do. And I'm glad they made the time to be with us while they were here. Fortunately, this is going to be recorded, is still recording, and will be available on the CARES website for those people to revisit. For panelist members, if you get an email from Maggie looking for clarification for contact information, it's just to make sure that it's so that she can put it on the website, make sure that people can contact you. I know that a lot of you shared your information in the chat box as we were talking, so people on the call today were already probably taking notes if I had to guess. So again, thank you, everybody. Anybody who's still with us or wants to join us in the future, our Continuum of Care meets monthly. The first Tuesday of the month at noon, we have a Zoom call now. It used to be we'd meet in Glens Falls, but for the North Country, it's the first Tuesday of the month at noon. You can always email me and I can add you to our list if you want to join us on that. The second Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. is Saratoga's, 10 a.m. Right, Maggie? Okay.
Correct.
That's you can still email me and I'll connect you to the right people. But they meet the second Tuesday of the month and we meet twice a year for the full continuum, because we're a great big group and we can't always meet. Nowadays, I guess we could always meet virtually, but that's a whole nother conversation. Anyways, thank you again, everybody. I'm going to let you go because I know you probably got busy things to do. I know I do. And God bless. Have a good day now.